Creating roaming and mandatory user profiles is our next topic, and while it's not done as often as a decade ago, perhaps it's still a way to provide users with their profile documents when they log on to different systems. So the default user profile lives locally on the user's C drive, but a roaming profile has a copy in a designated location on a network share. Now, when a user logs on, Windows checks for a local profile and for a network copy of that profile, and whichever copy is more recent gets copied and used. If a user logs on to a computer that she hasn't logged on to before, the network copy of the profile will download to the local machine. If a user makes any changes to the profile documents or settings during a computing session, then the changes will sync up to that network share at logoff, with the exception of the app data, local and local low folders, and any other exclusions that might be made by group policy, for example. Now, to make a roaming profile, we can simply create a folder on the server for storing profile data, set its permissions appropriately, and point the specific user's account to that profile folder, for example, as shown here, using Active Directory users and computers, or group policy, which might be easier in many situations, and then the user's profile will synchronize to that network location. Group policy settings govern the behavior of roaming profiles. For example, we can specify to delete user profiles older than a certain number of days. We can disable roaming profiles entirely with the policy only allow local user profiles. We can set the roaming profile path via group policy, as I mentioned, and here's something interesting. We can download roaming profiles on primary computers only. The primary computer is a user attribute that exists now in Active Directory, recognizing that these days people often have multiple devices, but they don't necessarily need their user profile on all of them, and they may not want to wait around on all those devices while their user profile downloads from the network location. That primary computer capability requires the Server 2012 schema in Active Directory. Well, a couple of wrinkles to be aware of if you're using roaming profiles or if you want to pass the certification exam. Mandatory user profiles are read-only. That is, user changes do not get synchronized back up to the network copy. And the way to make a profile mandatory is to rename its suffix to .man. Now, the other wrinkle is the super mandatory profile, in which an admin can add the .man suffix to the actual folder name. Now, this means that the user won't be allowed to sign in at all if that network profile is unavailable for whatever reason.